As the world fights the coronavirus, waste reclaimers are also fighting for recognition and are changing the narrative. My name is Pule Mulibatsi. You are watching Stories Untold. It is an honor and a privilege to bring you all this positive and uplifting news, whether it's hot, cold, calm or windy weather such as the one we are experiencing today. Welcome to this show. From the kitchen to landfills, today we bring you the story of Luyanda, also co-founder of African Reclaimers Organization. Let's have a look at his story.
Not so long ago, this was your chef. Forced to abandon that profession due to health issues, 35-year-old Luyanda, also a father of two, found himself having to endure a sense of shame. Now digging through waste, he is a reclaimer, cleaning up the environment for a living.
Well, I was desperate, just like everyone else. You know, I was desperate for a job. I was desperate to make money. I was desperate to feed my children. I had a good job. Things just changed. I had a problem with my chest. I had a chronic disease that I had to really take care of. And at that time, I was working in the hospitality industry. I was literally at the kitchen like 18 hours a day, you know, and the gas was not really helping out. I had to make a choice between continuing being in the kitchen or finding alternatives. So I chose alternatives. It took me 8 months until I realized that you can't find jobs.
As last resort, he found this job.
And a friend of mine introduced me, and the first time I went out, I literally shut my eyes, went away. A month later, I saw him being able to pay rent. And that is when I figured, you know what, it's not about status, it's not about what type of work you're doing, it's about being able to wake up and doing all means possible to provide for yourself or your family without even hurting someone.
Shame, insults, and stereotypes are among the baggage that dragged behind him.
So I think it's firstly they're trying to understand how this actually makes money, the strain on your body. I mean, when I started, I would travel literally from Newtown to Roadport, you know, to Rosebank, and it took a strain on my body. Psychologically, it was disturbing because from a person who was having a clean job where you have to wash your hands every 2 minutes, now to a job where whether you do wash your hands are gonna get dirty. You know, but the biggest problem was actually the stigma. You know, seeing taxi drivers screaming, calling you names. You know, malala pai, you know, whatever they may call you, a scavenger. You know, you get to a location and someone chases you away. You know, say move. What are you doing here? It was disturbing. I think at first it was a couple of friends that would see me on the street like, no, it's not him. You know, and they would call and ask, I saw you. I'm like, no, that's not me. You know, and I think my mother was the first person that realized it, and she came to me and said, do whatever you have to do. If you believe that's what you have to do to feed your daughter, go ahead and do it. It was difficult with a partner who's used to having this guy who comes back from work, you know, a normal lifestyle, to a guy who's full of filth, a guy who goes through bins. It was difficult for her, you know, as much as it was difficult for me. Look at her family. How does her family look at her? You know, unfortunately, we have to make decisions. And I had to make a decision that I'm not going to starve once I've got a brain, once I've got hands, and once I've got a full body. And hence I find myself here today.
Luyanda, like other reclaimers, started off working alone, dragging his trolley. But with time, he came up with initiatives to make reclaimers' lives and work easier.
Last is Luyanda building materials that we're going to use as a space for reclaimers to be able to use as an office, to say. We collect these things donated by residents, not for the purpose of selling, but mainly for the purpose of building safe structures for the people that work on the streets. A very long relationship with a lot of residents associations in and around the city of Johannesburg. So we've created this inclusive circular system. We not only are we looking at doing recyclable materials, but we are also looking at changing people's lifestyles. For example, there's printers that we're finding here, there's old computers we're finding here, there's a reclaimer, he's pulling a trolley now, but before he used to do IT, that person can bring that thing back to life and be able to put more value into it.
This change came about finding innovative ways to change the stereotypes about this job.
Between the period of 2017 and 2018, the city of Johannesburg introduced a separation at source program, which was supposed to be including everyone. But what happened was they came with a cooperative system where the people that would be eligible to be collecting materials from certain suburbs need to have a cooperative, a registered cooperative, B certificate and all the works. So we had to find a system that would be able to work for us. And we started an organization called African Reclaimers Organization, where we can be able to have our own word, where we can be able to say, this is us united, and we can be able to stand for ourselves.
What were the challenges that you guys went through when you started the project?
Being recognized. When you're walking into municipal offices and you say, I'm a reclaimer, I want to speak to such and such a person, it feels like you're wasting their time. When you go into JMPD and you're saying we have 15 reclaimers that have their materials banned, they don't take it seriously. When a reclaimer gets hit on the road, you will never see it written on the papers. It happens every day. You can have a robbery right here and everyone will be a suspect, but when a reclaimer passes through, they're not going, because we are invisible. Reclaimers in South Africa has been so invisible to the point that people start undermining the work that we've been doing. Fortunately, there are people that are willing to help. Fortunately, there are activists and environmentalists that can see the difference that reclaimers are doing. And that is why we've decided to engage with proper stakeholders that have the same vision, more or less the same vision, than people who have a fear of us disturbing their businesses. Unilever and Petco were the first industries that actually came up and wanted to offer their assistance, from working material to from plastic bags, from PPEs, from flyers for us to be able to send information to the residents. They helped us in educating as many people as possible. But when it came to us wanting to make an impact, we really necessarily did need some funds, and Unilever came on board. And the funds were not to make people happy, but the funds were there to prove a point that reclaimers are able to do a much better job than private contractors.
Making sure they are still able to support their families even during COVID-19, this is their daily routine.
Right now, the recycling industry is almost closed. 90% of the materials are not sellable, but people are able to go out and work, collect the materials, store it, and still be able to earn a living out of it. We weigh each and every bag, and every bag is being, every person gets the money for 50 cents per kilo. So, for example, if someone's bag is 300 kilograms, with 50 cents per kilo, they're gonna get 150 rand. So that is not from selling the materials. That is from a service that they've actually provided. We are trying to create a baseline on how to integrate waste pickers in the formal waste management system. And it's just one of the simplest solutions of saying these people that have been collecting waste for such a long time and making value out of it, saving the environment, definitely are workers and they need to be paid.
With so many well-learned college graduates working this job, finding even greater ideas to help make it work is not a problem.
For over 84 years, the SABC has been at the forefront of broadcast radio and television, bringing joy and happiness to the homes of many while continually redefining South Africa's media landscape. We do not speak with one voice. We let every voice in our nation find expression in language and in culture. We do not just bring the news, we provide content that is independent and impartial. We do not just broadcast sport, but we do it for the love of the game. We do not just entertain, we deliver local content, representing Mzansi for sure. We empower you with educational content that reminds you where you belong. With 19 radio stations and 5 TV channels, SABC 1, 2, 3, Education and SABC News Channel, we ensure that everyone in our nation is informed, educated and entertained. All the while knowing that at 84, there's still much more yet to come. Hashtag 84 years of SABC.
Welcome back. You are still watching Stories Untold. Thank you for being here. From rags to riches, a phrase that we are all familiar with. But today on the show, we are showing you this the other way around. This has proven to be the story for most waste collectors. But how did they land up here? Let's have a look.
There are so many stereotypes and insults directed at reclaimers and their job in South Africa. But what people do not know is that within this industry are individuals who once held positions and jobs deemed prestigious. But due to unforeseen circumstances, they find themselves here. 35-year-old Luyanda is among those people.
Personally, I'm a chef. I'm a very good cook. David used to study accounting as well. I studied accounting. You've got guys that there's a gentleman from the landfill by the name of Louis Mahlango, who's very good at heavy current electricity. You know, there's guys that were secretaries. There's Eva Mukwena, who's our chairperson, who used to be a teacher. So there's many different. When Eskom starts shedding jobs, what happens? People jump into the recycling industry. When the mining sector starts shedding jobs, what happens? People come into the recycling industry. When people travel from Mozambique to Lesotho to come looking for jobs and they can't find them, they end up in this recycling industry.
This is 32-year-old Mazi Makamu from Kiani, Limpopo. He holds a qualification in engineering.
After matric in 2000, Palavra College, learn figuring the entry, and then from then, entry national certificate for mechanic. So ngizela ijozi ukuthi ngizofuna umsebenzi ngamaketa isikhathi eside ngangawuthola umsebenzi, and then ngabona ukuthi ini abanye ba recycle abatopa igubhu amaplastic amabox ba recycle, and then nami ngibajoinile sasebenza lo msebenzi ngabona ukuthi ini ngiyakhona ukusupporta ngiyakhona ukwenza izinto zami zibe right. Ngiqale lo msebenzi I think it was 2006 ya ngiqale umsebenzi lona until manje vele ngisasebenza wona.
Ukusiza njani?
Lo msebenzi uyangisiza ngoba ngiyakhona ukusupport ingane, like ingane yami yokuqala manje yenza imatric. Since ngisupporta ngayo le mali ye recycling ngiyakhona ukuthi ngakhe nami ngisiphathe kahle sho ukuthi ngikhona ukuzigqokisa ngigqokisa ingane ngiyise esikolweni.
The engineering dream is now nothing but a distant memory.
Amaphupho mechanic mama angisekho kakhulu kuwo ngoba ngibonile mina umsebenzi ukhona ukungidlisa yiwo lo ngoba ngimaketile isikhathi eside ngawutholi endaweni eziningi bathi bafuna experience mara mawusuka esikolweni experience uzosuka uyithathe kuphi.
42-year-old Lithogonolo Mfazwe also used to be a reclaimer. Now a successful farmer, he comes here to visit his former colleagues and friends.
We've been sebenza apha nabafethu for a while. benzala itroli nami suka apha siyeshona North Cliff Corner, Fairlands, you name them, Rosebank and them. Up and down 2019, January. Yeah, I got a job as a security somewhere. Some Chinese guy came through looking for guys who can work, you know. Yeah, then I was available. In Tenzegleyo, there's a bit of a land that I have. Actually, my elders left it for me in Mpumalanga. So I went there. I went to plant a bit of vegetables and all that. And then since we got corona, it was a loss. It was a loss, meaning I have to start from the scratch.
He recalls how the reclaiming job helped him during the trying times.
Yeah. Because I had no plan. I had no plan, and the only thing I could do was to be around people that can make me get something, you know. Yeah, then I came across my homeboys. They said, yeah, you know what, this is how we survive. We recycle, you know. And they're doing a very big job. If they can stop doing this, the whole city will be dirty. In terms of, like say, this is not where you end. Here you squatting.
Kube neshintsho elikhulu kakhulu ngoba ngendlela besiphila ngayo like besokola, and then until kwaba ne-organization le ike ya distributiwa le ukuthi ini sisize yiwiko, and then sahlangana nje sabaherezi kula ngiqala ukwazi Luyanda, and then masihlangana kwaba ukuthi si yenza organization lesibiza iAro. See from there hayi kube izinto zibe simple ngoba ini sizamekile ukuthola ama-plastic like from Aro nendawo la ukuthi ini singakhona ukucollecta khona materials.
I think the first step for a reclaimer to actually accept who and what they're doing is the day they move out of that, they move that balaclava out. It's a sign of respecting what you're doing and honoring that this is actually a job for me. I don't have to hide it to anyone because I'm able to do what a lot of people are able to do. When I'm washed on Saturday, I'm going to ShopRite to buy food. No one can actually see that money comes from the bin. But here it is. We have people, a system that is working without depending on anyone. And they're able to do things on their own. So it becomes difficult when we are able to recognize ourselves and you find that government and other industries that are involved, they do not recognize us.
The truck also gives women working this job a chance to catch a breath as they don't have to drag their waste. And as one of their initiatives, the group also work with residents cleaning up the popular Jaskei River.
Media Monitor on the SABC News Channel. This is where we take a look inside the world of media, analysing the trends, the issues and the reporting of some of the week's top stories.
It's the responsibility of journalists to hold those in power accountable.
Journalists who stick to their mandate and basically hold the line against all of these threats to democracy are the reason why people still trust the media.
Don't forget you can engage with us on social media using hashtag SABC Media Monitor. We'd love to hear from you.
Watch Media Monitor Sundays at 9 a.m.
The African Union condemned attacks against humanitarian and aid workers, saying the attacks violate international norms.
Before coronavirus, the African Union had a noble aim for 2020, silencing guns across the continent.
When we balance fighting COVID and silence the guns, we will be focused on achieving strategic mandates of our union.
The African Union is worried about the increasing violent extremism and terrorism, despite it joining the United Nations to call for ceasefires in the face of the pandemic.
Welcome back to the show. While making an income through the waste they collect, waste collectors are also key players in keeping the environment safe. We continue with the story of Luyanda. Let's have a look.
Moving from your trash can to cleaning up polluted spaces around Johannesburg, this is Luyanda and his colleagues. Now working in a sector that is overlooked and undermined, Luyanda, alongside some of his co-workers, once held professions deemed important. However, that life was short-lived, and due to the scarcity of jobs, they found themselves here. But instead of succumbing to stereotypes that come with this reclaiming job, they decided to work towards changing the narrative. Having formed an organization called Arrow, the team now works with residents and organizations for a cleaner and safer environment.
Yeah, we're doing a cleanup, a river cleanup, which is based mostly in where the most of the reclaimers would reside along the JSK River. So the problem here started when the lot of waste that's coming out from the reclaimers was going straight into the JSK and affecting a lot of neighboring residents around. So immediately we had to start an initiative of cleaning the river with the residents. I think the work that we do kind of affects other people because it goes into the river and it goes and affects the other residents, where you find in this location the guys were almost close to being evicted because of the problems that are happening with their neighbors. So finding solutions of working with the neighborhoods to be able to clean the JSK and solve as many possible problems that come from them.
One of the good things that the conflict resolution yielded is peace and unity, as they are strengthening relationships with residents.
I'm a resident of this local neighbourhood, and I'm very fortunate and privileged to have worked with Arrow, the African Reclaimers organisation, in other parts of the city. And in this neighbourhood there are a number of challenges where residents had very bad perceptions of reclaimers, and the reclaimers were on the site, and there were some fightings and some bad things happened with non-reclaimers. So I've been able to negotiate some sort of peace or truce between the residents of the neighbourhood in the houses and the complexes and the reclaimers on site, with Arrow acting as the mediator, so that the reclaimers on site are now cleaning and doing environmental cleanups along the river in collaboration with the Klein Yukskai Greenbelt Initiative, a local NGO who's been cleaning kilometres of the river on that way.
Having met in other project sites, the reclaimers have since collaborated with her company.
I work in other areas such as in Vredendorp, and I do field research in Pennyville and Dipsut, and so Arrow were an organisation I had known in the past and collaborated with my company that does a lot of participation and community development programs. There's absolute value. Reclaimers add enormous amount to the economy. They add enormous amount to the environment. I think there were some misunderstandings on this site, but once everyone started communicating, it made a huge difference to the relationships and the trust between the different communities in this neighbourhood.
Several other industries are also beginning to look at new ways of using waste and creating value from it. In a long-term relationship with it, this is Tamsin Bota. Tamsin runs an artist residency and prefers sourcing materials from reclaimers.
I've had a good relationship with Luyanda from Arrow for a while now, especially during the sort of COVID response. I just got involved more and more with the reclaimers. And in my own capacity, I'm an artist, and I collect materials from the reclaimers. I suppose that's kind of the synchronicity that I share with them. The fact that I don't see anything different between what they do collecting and what I do collecting. I'm a hoarder.
And this is her shade.
So Shade is a space that I've had for a while now. I had it for about a year and a half. Effectively, it's a project space where I've had various workshops, but at this stage I'm hosting Waste Not, Want Not, which is an artist residency where artists use materials that I've collected from reclaimers all over. The main agenda has been to try and get non-recyclables, the stuff that reclaimers can't sell, because they obviously can sell their recyclables back to the buyback centres. So majority of the stuff you see on this shelf is the non-recyclables, then through there's the recyclables.
All right, so you take pictures every time you
Yes.
collect.
I think that's also just to push the narrative and drive the point home for the artists coming into the space, to show them where you know, each item, each waste material has been collected, then along with just notes saying why it's not recyclable, what sort of, you know, these wigs, for example, non-recyclable because they contain either polyvinyl or PVC, and then you've got your values that the recyclables hold to, you know, for the reclaimers when they are selling it to buyback centres. So, for example, PP5, which is a lot of these sort of things, they're getting $2.80 per kg. I don't see any difference between what I do and what a reclaimer does, because I'm looking for something that holds a certain value to me, just like the reclaimer. So I think my lineage has always been to the reclaimers because they're silently running Joburg. You know, they're silently running this country, and I think only now, recently, are starting to get into the public eye. But every single person can relate to waste because we all make it, and that's why I think we can all relate to reclaimers. So I'm just hoping to bridge that gap so community members know the reclaimer on the street. They have forged a relationship, you know. I think it's bygone that, you know, these are like the silent salvages.
At first it was just putting food on the table and covering important things, paying rent. Now I've seen a whole different social aspect that needs to be attended. I'm seeing a pandemic that no one is actually noticing. A pandemic of poverty, of being undermined. You know, people are making noise about COVID-19 right now. Masks and everything. Reclaimers have been asking for masks for the past 5 years. Reclaimers have been asking for sanitizer for the past 5 years. All this time, we've been having a problem of hygiene. No one actually cared. When there was a Stories breakout, a lot of reclaimers were affected because all of that food was being thrown at the landfills where there was reclaimers.
We hope that today's show has challenged your perception about waste collectors and you now have a deeper understanding of this job and the people who do it. Thank you so much for watching us today. From myself, Pule Mulebatsi, and the rest of the team, goodbye.